If you click this video, you've most likely set the goal of trying to lose some fat this year. This is my goal for the new year as well. I'm trying to get under 10% body fat for the first time in a few years. However, if you follow fitness content at all, you've probably also heard that most diets fail over the long term. And this is true. Just take a look at this study on the Biggest Loser contest, which followed up on the participants from the 2009 show 6 years after the show was over. Out of the 14 people who participated in the study, only one person had kept their weight off after 6 years. 5 of the 14 subjects had regained all of their weight back, and 2 of the 14 ended up weighing more than they did before the show even started. So fully half the subjects had at least gained all their weight back. Similarly, this 2020 systematic review on the challenge of keeping it off pulled the results of 8 separate weight loss studies and found that while all the studies were able to induce weight loss during the dieting period, they also all saw average weight regain after the diet was over, with a few studies showing overshoot beyond the original starting weight. Now, I think a large part of why this trend is so common is that people often don't realize that getting lean for a temporary time frame, like a fitness event or a wedding or a photo shoot, is a different goal with a different set of strategies than getting lean and staying lean over the long term. Now, before we get into those strategies, to get everyone on the same page, give me 1 minute to explain how fat loss actually works. Fat loss occurs because of a caloric deficit. This means that you're consuming less calories than you're burning. You consume calories by eating food, and you burn calories in 4 ways. There's your resting energy expenditure, which is the number of calories your body burns just sitting there, so to keep your heart beating and so on. There's your exercise activity thermogenesis. This is the number of calories you burn from exercising. There's your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT, and this is any activity that isn't exercise, so stuff like getting up, sitting down, typing, and tapping your fingers. And then there's the thermic effect of food, which is the small number of calories your body burns digesting the foods you eat. So let's say we add all that up and it comes out to 2,500 calories burned over the course of a day. And then we tally up everything you ate that day and it was 3,000 calories. That would mean you were in a 500 calorie surplus for that day. But if instead of 3,000 calories, you only ate 2,000 calories, now that would mean you were in a 500 calorie deficit for the day. And if you sustained that 500 calorie deficit over time, you'd lose about 1 pound per week, which is actually a reasonable target for most people to aim for. So that's all pretty simple, but there's a very important part that many people miss. It's important to realize that as you lose weight, the number of calories you burn will decrease. This is called metabolic adaptation. As you lose weight, you won't burn as many calories through resting energy expenditure because your body is getting smaller. You won't burn as many calories per unit of exercise because your body is becoming more energetically efficient. You won't burn as many calories through NEAT because your body is becoming less hyperactive and fidgety, and you won't burn as many calories through the thermic effect of food because you're eating less food. So keep in mind that the 500 calorie deficit you started out with probably won't be a 500 calorie deficit after a few weeks or months of dieting. And that's because when you decrease the number of calories you're eating, you also indirectly decrease the number of calories you're burning. And sometimes these adaptations can happen very quickly, even within days. So to account for metabolic adaptation, which will occur, you may need to lower calories a bit further to keep up with your desired rate of weight loss, or you can simply accept the fact that your weight loss may take a bit longer than expected. All right, so in order for any fat loss diet to work, it needs to have 3 crucial things: a sustained caloric deficit to cause fat loss, weight training to support muscle mass, and enough protein to support muscle mass. Usually 1.6 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, or 0.7 to 1 gram per pound, is a good target to aim for. And pretty much everything else, including the number of meals you eat, the timing of those meals, and what specific foods you focus on, can be largely dictated by your own individual preferences. So those are the basics for how you lose fat. Now from here, most people turn to short-term strategies to try to get that fat off as quickly as possible. But this is a mistake. Yes, all the most popular fad diets will cause fat loss in the short term. That's what actually caused them to become so popular in the first place. But low-calorie crash diets tend to result in more muscle loss and eventual weight regain. And yes, isolating yourself from social events and avoiding restaurants may help you fend off tempting foods for some time, but can also deteriorate your relationships and eventually make the diet feel unsustainable. And yes, cutting out entire food groups may help you avoid overeating for a while, but can eventually lead to nutrient deficiencies and uncontrollable cravings that make weight regain inevitable. So if you want to not just get lean, but stay lean, you need to take a better approach. So next, let's dig into 3 specific strategies that'll help you not only lose the fat, but keep it off over the long term. The third strategy on my list is the most frequently neglected in my experience, but also probably the most important. All right, the first long-term strategy is to diet more slowly so that it barely even feels like you're dieting at all. Now, the general science-based cutting rule is that you should aim to lose around 0.5 to 1% of your body weight per week on a fat loss phase. So if you weigh 200 pounds right now, you should try to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. Or, in other words, if you want to cut 20 pounds, it should take you 10 to 20 weeks to get there. This is what I typically recommend as well. However, there may be some benefits to going even slower. In fact, on my own current weight loss journey, I've lost 24 pounds or 11 kilos, and that journey has taken me 40 weeks or just about 9 months. I started my cut at 187 pounds or 85 kilos, and now I'm down to 163 pounds or 74 kilos. That evens out to an average weight loss of just over half a pound per week. And because I've taken my sweet time with it, the weight loss itself has felt incredibly easy. Ridiculously easy. I've been eating out at restaurants, going out with friends, eating pizza and sushi, and the slower pace of things has helped me be very chill about my diet. Now, you can see a few times here where my weight spiked noticeably. The first spike was in the middle of August when some friends came to visit Steph and me in Toronto, and we were eating out almost every night. I gained 2 or 3 pounds that week, but when I look back, it's really just a tiny blip in the overall trend. This other spike lasted for most of November. I gained 4 pounds that month, but I was visiting Steph in New Orleans. It was during Thanksgiving, and again, it's not a big deal at all when you zoom out and look at the overall trend. And I think this mindset is not only okay, but actually smarter, because it'll help you not only be chill throughout the diet process, it'll help you stay chill once you get to your goal weight. By going slow, you won't feel deprived or eager to get off the diet because you won't feel like you've been dieting very hard all along. This will help you maintain the leanness you eventually reach much more easily, and I think it'll be worth that extra bit of time it takes for you to get there. So to make sure you're losing around that ideal rate of 0.5 to 1% of body weight per week, I'd recommend a caloric deficit around 20% below your current maintenance. To do this, simply take the calories you'd need to maintain your weight right now and slash 20% from it. If you don't know how to find your maintenance calories, I'll put 2 methods up here on the screen that you can pause and read. And of course, if you don't want to track calories at all, you can instead focus on tracking your body weight while making intuitive, common sense, lower calorie food choices most of the time. For some people, those simple common sense choices will be enough to get things moving. For others, a tool like intermittent fasting can be very helpful. Or if you're like me, to relieve tracking stress, you can just loosely track calories and protein without worrying about the carb and fat numbers. So for example, if I'm eating something that's harder to find the exact macros for, like a specialty sushi roll, I can just eyeball it as 500 or 600 calories and call it a day. This way, it only takes me a total of maybe 5 minutes a day to track what I eat. I should also mention that in addition to giving yourself plenty of time to get lean, you also need to give yourself a realistic end target. No matter how slow you go, you simply can't expect to maintain 6% body fat all year round. At a certain point, your sleep, libido, energy, and mood will all plummet, and all you'll ever be able to think about is food. So even if you could do it, this isn't a state of existence worth maintaining anyway. Generally speaking, most men can expect to maintain something between 10 and 20% body fat, which looks something like this. Granted, I do think that your starting place can impact where you end up. For example, if you've been sitting at 40% body fat for 10 years, it might be harder for you to maintain 20% body fat than it is for someone who's genetically leaner to maintain 8% body fat. But you just need to find an endpoint that's realistic for you and realize that everyone is unique in terms of how low they can comfortably go. Someone else's 8% might be your 18%, and that's okay. For women, the realistic range tends to be between 18 and 28% body fat, which looks something like this. And once again, the bottom line is that if you're trying to maintain a physique that's leaner than your genetic body fat set range, it'll be very hard for you to sustain, even if you do everything else right. Okay, the second long-term strategy is to leverage habits to make the diet feel as easy as possible. Regardless of how motivated you feel right now as you watch this video, eventually your motivation will dip back down. When that happens, and it will happen, if you haven't built the right habits, you'll most likely start veering off track. However, if you can operate on autopilot, you've got nothing to worry about when this happens. So I want to share a couple of my favorite science-based habit-building techniques that you can use to make your life a whole lot easier in those later stages when most people slip up. The first habit-building technique is called temptation bundling. This is when you pair an activity that you already want to do with an activity that supports your weight loss goal. For example, I really enjoy watching true crime video essays on YouTube. This behavior comes naturally for me. But I don't love doing cardio, and I'm often tempted to skip it. However, if I link the more enjoyable activity of watching crime videos with the less enjoyable activity of doing cardio, I'm much less tempted to skip the cardio. Some of my bodybuilder friends do this by playing video games while hitting their cardio at home. As another example, if you're trying to build the habit of meal prepping on Sundays, try saving your favorite podcast for when it's time to do your meal prep. That way, you'll make that new behavior more gratifying in the moment. My other habit-building technique is to align your everyday environment with your goals. For example, if there's a particular food that you consistently overeat, maybe leave it on the shelf next time you're grocery shopping. Or if you're regularly stress eating at night, keep alternative stress relievers like video games, books, and puzzles close by so you can use them for stress relief instead. If you're missing gym time in the morning because you scroll on your phone before getting out of bed, try leaving your phone in a different room or picking up an old school alarm clock to get you up faster. Now, if you do everything that I've said in this video so far, or even most of what I've said, you will reach your goal. You absolutely will. However, that's not the end. Once you've reached your goal, you need a plan for what to do next. And this is the part that almost everyone neglects. So my third and final strategy is to have a smart post-diet plan. Now, there are two very common mistakes that I see people make after reaching their fat loss goal. The first, and probably most common mistake, is when people just don't have any post-diet plan at all. In this case, as motivation decreases, they revert back to their old eating habits and gradually creep up in weight until eventually they're back to square one. The solution here is pretty simple. You just need a post-diet plan. We'll get to that in a minute. The second mistake, which is more common amongst the more sciencey fitness crowd, is meticulous reverse dieting. This can be just as bad as the first mistake if it drags out the diet unnecessarily, keeps you hungry for longer than you need to be, and leads to an eventual breakdown of willpower. Now, I'm planning to cover reverse dieting in detail in a future video, but for now, reverse dieting is when you gradually increase your calories from your deficit intake up to your maintenance intake over the course of several weeks or months. And even though it's quite popular, I don't actually recommend it as part of a post-diet plan. Instead, I recommend going to your new maintenance calories right away. If you no longer have the goal of losing weight, why be in a caloric deficit? If you're not cutting anymore, you should get to maintenance and get on with your new goal of maintaining. Now, finding your new maintenance calories at the end of a diet can take a bit of trial and error, but for the most part, should be something around 200 to 600 calories above what you were eating at the end of your cut. So let's say you were eating 2,000 calories by the end of your diet. The very next day, you should boost your calories up to 2,200 to 2,600 calories, probably closer to 2,600 if you didn't crash diet. From there, you should aim to more gradually increase your calories until you get them as high as possible while still maintaining your body weight on average. So let's say your cut is over and you go ahead and bump your calories up to your new maintenance intake of 2,600 calories. That's a great start, but it doesn't mean that 2,600 calories is now a fixed maintenance for you. You should instead think of your maintenance as a dynamic range, meaning you might be able to maintain your weight by eating anything from 2,600 to 3,000 calories. So over time, you should try to increase your calories toward the top end of your maintenance calorie range. This process doesn't need to be long and dragged out either. Simply monitor your average weight trend from week to week, and if you're still more or less maintaining, it may be time to add some calories. And the reason this is a good idea isn't because it's a special trick for boosting your metabolism, but rather because if you can eat more food, you'll feel less restricted, which will make it easier for you to maintain your weight. More food also improves training performance, which is always a good thing, especially if you're looking to enter a lean gaining phase after your cut. Of course, if you don't like to track calories, you should still continue to track your body weight once your cut is over. Regular weighing has been associated with better long-term weight maintenance in the scientific literature, and that behavior alone will help keep you accountable to your new goal of maintaining. Of course, this doesn't mean you need to weigh yourself every single day, but I usually do recommend weighing yourself at least 2 or 3 days a week during a maintenance phase, as long as doing so doesn't give you any emotional stress. Now, before we wrap it up, I'd like to take a minute to recommend the Macro Factor app as yet another tool that you can use to help you reach your fat loss goals. I'm a part owner of the app, and I've been involved in the app's development since day one, and I truly believe it's the best nutrition app on the market. First of all, unlike most diet apps, it isn't just a food logger. It's quite literally a nutrition coach that uses science-based algorithms to detect changes in your metabolism and make adjustments to your food intake based on your individual weekly check-ins. This is insanely helpful for accountability. Also, unlike most apps, Macro Factor was designed with both weight loss and weight maintenance in mind. In fact, after you've reached your weight loss goal, there's something called dynamic maintenance mode that'll help you keep your weight within plus or minus 2 pounds of your end weight. This is a huge feature that I haven't seen any other diet apps use. It also has the fastest food logger in existence, which means tracking really shouldn't feel like a chore once you give it a few days to get the hang of it. And then, unlike any other app I'm aware of, it also doesn't punish you if you miss a day here and there, so you can be more chill about your diet overall. So if this sounds like something you'd like to try out for yourself, you can get a free 2-week trial of Macro Factor at the first link in the description box below. There's also a very active Facebook group and subreddit that I keep an eye on, where you can ask questions or post updates. I find these communities are really helpful for accountability, so if you do sign up, make sure you get in there as well. All right, that's it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys all here in the next one.